Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Katz, and welcome to Tuesday's edition of WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, where we tell it like it is. Friends, Inside the Trojans Huddle is a game-like panel discussion that is posted each Tuesday during the season. Huddle features WeAreSC columnists, staff writers, and historians. We start off with the pregame show where we introduce our panel members for this edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. So let's meet those panelists. A WeAreSC columnist who writes WeAreSC.com's The Monday Morass, Yay or Nay, and Sunday Takeaways, in addition to regular season football and basketball reports. He also hosts his own podcast show entitled Locked On USC. That's Mark Culkin. The editor-in-chief of WeAreSC.com, columnist, national recruiting guru, producer, and moderator of WeAreSC's Fridays 4 Downs video show and 5 Things video show as well, which is posted on YouTube and WeAreSC.com after each and every USC football game, home and away, as well as the bowl game coming up. He's a graduate of USC. That's Eric McKinney, a former William Jewell College defensive back and WeAreSC columnist who writes the popular WeAreSC.com column Musings with Arledge and the well-received Musings with Arledge solo video edition. He's a graduate of the USC Law School. That's Chris Arledge. And a weekly WeAreSC columnist who writes Fridays the Obvious, Not So Obvious, from the press box. I am H.O. Sunday, the WeAreSC.com travel guide, and an active member of the Football Writers Association of America, your moderator and producer of Inside the Trojans Huddle. That's me, Greg Katz. Folks, if you enjoy WeAreSC.com's Inside the Trojans Huddle, we thank you and strongly encourage those of you watching on sites like YouTube to click on the like and red subscriber buttons. It's greatly valued, appreciated, and it is free. You can also listen to Inside the Trojans Huddle on most available podcast sites. And friends, speaking of WeAreSC.com, we're offering first-time subscribers unlimited premium access for just $1 for 1 month. If you're not already a full-time subscriber, you don't want to miss out on the football website that really does tell it like it is. All right, we're ready to kick it off, and boy, we got quite a show for all of you out there. So let's get into it. Panel, after much discussion, Lincoln Riley finally named his new defensive coordinator to guide the Trojans in 2024, a season that will be incredibly challenging both in non-conference games and in the Trojans' initial season into the Big Ten Conference. It should be a tough one. So, after all the speculation, intrigue, and rumors, it was officially announced that D'Anton Lynn, the former defensive coordinator at UCLA, has been named the Trojans' new DC. A quick background, D'Anton Lynn, 34 years old, was born in Plano, Texas, played his prep football at Salina High in Salina, Texas, played his college ball at Penn State as a corner, was a 3-year All-Big Ten honorable mention selection, and he had a very brief career with the New York Jets and then the Hamilton Tiger Cats of the CFL. After his playing career concluded, Lynn got into coaching, where he spent coaching time with the New York Jets, Buffalo Bills, Los Angeles Chargers, Houston Texans, and the Baltimore Ravens under John Harbaugh before accepting the UCLA Bruins defensive coordinator position for the 2023 season. And if the name sounds somewhat familiar to you, D'Anton Lynn is the son of former Los Angeles Chargers head coach Anthony Lynn, who is currently assistant head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. So with that foundation laid, let's get into it. Panel, your overall thoughts, assessments, and value of D'Anton Lynn as the Trojans' new defensive coordinator. We start off, as always, with Mark Culkin.
Yeah, so look, I don't think he was at the top of anybody's choice list, but I'm not upset about this. I saw all I needed to see from his defense when he trotted out the Bruins against USC. When you hold the Trojans, Lincoln Riley's offense, to 2 offensive touchdowns and 3 yards rushing, you're doing something right. I don't care, what he inherited as far as, size of players. UCLA's defense in 2022 was barely better statistically than USC's. They were, they were bad. And to see the difference that they made, or that his defense made in 1 year, just imagine if he accomplished half of that at USC in 2023. We probably aren't going to the Holiday Bowl. Now, I like the hire. One of the questions is he's only done it for 1 year. I get that. But with that said, Lincoln Riley said the right things, which is ironic considering, who he chose to keep around for the defense for a second year. When he said, what I told Coach Lynn is my mentality going into it is we're going to do everything we can in this program to accelerate the process of us playing great defense as USC. Everything we do is going to be done with the defensive mind first. So I guess that's a new philosophical change that Lincoln Riley, at least he's saying it, that the defense is now first and foremost when it comes to putting this team together. And, he also used other coach speak things as non-negotiables on his part, making sure that they aligned with what Coach Lynn wanted. So we're going to see going forward. Again, I like the hire. I like what I saw, what his defense did against USC when he was at UCLA for that blink of a time. And is he going to be able to carry that over? And is Lincoln Riley going to, not just say the words, is he going to act upon them? Is he going to make sure their front four are bigger across the line? That was the other thing that Riley spoke about, is not just the philosophical differences, but there were significant differences in everything that what he was doing before and what they're going to be doing going forward. So now we need to see, is Lincoln Riley going to stand behind those words? I like everything he said during the Zoom call Monday. Now we'll see if they follow through.
Eric, your thoughts?
So I'm in agreement with Mark when you list out the best defensive coordinators in college football right now. The names that come to mind. D'Anton Lynn is not in that group unless you specifically saw him, then you know what he did. But he doesn't have that name cachet throughout the country that some of the other guys do. Having said that, I'm okay rolling the dice based on what you saw. There's a ton of questions just because he's called plays for a year now. I mean, at any level, past this, in the NFL, he's a position coach, kind of an assistant position coach for a long time. So the track record is not there. The track record is not there. No matter how you want to say what he did in 2023 with UCLA. That being said, you can get a sense on a guy and how serious he is about something and how well he can coach it. And I think that's what stands out to me. He didn't pick any of his assistants at UCLA. He showed up and they were all in there. I guarantee you UCLA does not have the best assistant coaches in college football. I think those guys are okay. I think they're good, but that was on Lynn to go in and change that culture and get everything done at UCLA in 1 year. And he got help from the players and from his assistants, the position coaches also, but his ability to step in and teach it and get the players to understand it and play it well, I think is what really stands out about him and what USC is absolutely going to need to get from him right away. It's a little bit of a lose-lose for him, maybe, because that bar is now so high for what USC is going to expect him to be able to do coming in year one against a schedule that is not comparable to the schedule that UCLA played in 2023. I mean, it is all the changes going into a new conference with teams he's not familiar with seeing and all of the stuff that you're kind of stepping into at USC. So I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with kind of, I don't think it's a dice roll. I think you see that he's ascending. You see that he got it in his first year in college, and you want to sort of harness that and use that to your benefit. And I think he's going to be able to do that, but it's a lot of I think right now, and it's belief, and it's sort of betting on that he can do it without being able to point to he did it here and he did it here, and he's done it at this school for 5 years with film on his defense and all of that. So there's a lot of questions. And then just to wrap my part up, I think what Mark said is important. What you heard from Lincoln Riley on Monday was a different way of talking about defense, and it all gets finished with we'll see. We'll see, right? We'll see how it goes out. It's great to say it. It's great to say it. You love to hear it. That's the first step. The first step is for him to say, we are going to play great defense. When push comes to shove, if we have to make a decision on whether we're going to go something that benefits the offense or something that benefits the defense, he said kind of for the first time, we're going to give the edge to the defense at every decision like that. Again, we'll see, but that's the first step in what you want to hear. What you want to hear from Lincoln Riley, and it feels different from him in that. So I think you go forward with this guy thinking that he probably has a good chance to get it done if Lincoln Riley follows up with everything that he talked about and the way he talked about this program changing to go at least a little. Not maybe it doesn't get defense first, but it doesn't get like defense fifth at this point going forward. You move it up the pecking order a bit.
All right, Chris Arledge, your perspective.
Yeah, I think I agree with what both guys said. There's a risk here because he doesn't have a long and distinguished track record. What he does have is a pretty dramatic turnaround at a program that isn't exactly known for playing fierce defense, right? And for a head coach that isn't known for that. UCLA gave up 4.4 yards per play this year. Only 4 teams in the country were better than that. And by the way, 5 of the top 8 teams in that category, which I think is a pretty important category, are Big Ten teams, largely because they don't play offense in the Big Ten. Now, let's be honest about this. They don't play offense in the Big Ten. And a lot of the names that came up, Manny Diaz and Phil Parker and everybody's favorite Jim Leonard, while I think they're probably great coaches, those guys also have been coaching and building resumes in a conference that doesn't play offense. I mean, the best team in the Big Ten was Michigan. Michigan played a whole half where they didn't throw a pass. Now, that's great if you're Woody Hayes, but that also means that they were showing a pretty limited offensive package, right? I mean, it's not like that's not like playing USC with Caleb Williams or Oregon with Bo Nix or Washington with Michael Penix. It's not like that. It's a completely different thing. And UCLA dodged some of those teams this year. I get that. But you're talking about a guy who stepped in and did a remarkable turnaround. And it's not just that the stats were better. It's that UCLA team played hard and they played fast and they played physical and they pushed USC's offense all around the field all day. And they did, and it wasn't just that. I mean, they went to Utah and they went toe-to-toe with Utah physically. If Utah doesn't get that pick 6 early in the game, that's a 7-7 game. I mean, and I know that Utah wasn't great offensively, but what I'm saying is UCLA went toe-to-toe with the team that's usually the most physical team in the conference, and not only didn't shrink, but they matched them. That doesn't happen unless somebody causes it to happen. That's impressive, okay? Would it surprise me then if he came around and did what USC badly needs, which is somebody to instill a new attitude with this defense where the guys are tough, physical, know their assignments, and play with their hair on fire? No, I think he'll probably be able to do that. But I say probably because it's not like he's done a lot of it. The other thing I think he gives you, I don't know what kind of recruiter he is because we haven't seen a lot of that, right? He doesn't recruit in the NFL. And at UCLA, you don't really recruit. So I don't know what kind of recruiter he is. I suspect a guy this young who has that playing background is probably a guy who the players are going to be able to relate with. The fact that he changed UCLA's mentality defensively as quickly as he did tells me he's probably pretty good at connecting with players. So I suspect he'll probably be a pretty good recruiter too. So this is not a sure thing, but I'm not disappointed in it. I think that if you're not able to land one of the sure things, sorry, I've been coughing nonstop for about 2 weeks. If you're not able to land a sure thing, you're going with an up-and-comer who you think is pretty likely to do at least a good job and maybe a lot better than that. And you're probably also getting a guy that's going to be around for a few years, right? Because he's not a guy who's going to have one successful season at USC and then jump to a head coaching position. This is a guy who's gonna have to be around a few years before he can make that jump. So if he's good, you're probably going to get him for 3 or 4 years, is my guess. That's not a terrible thing either. So all in all, I'm pretty excited about it. And Eric's right that Lincoln Riley is speaking the way he should be speaking. Does he mean it? I don't know, but I'll say this: I know Lincoln Riley doesn't want a repeat of what happened last year, right? I mean, as much as that was awful for all of us to watch, it's a lot worse for him, right? I mean, this is his career, it's his life, it's his football team, it's his name that goes on that 7-5 record when USC was a preseason top 5 team. Lincoln Riley needs things to change dramatically defensively, and I think he knows that. So whether he can make that happen or not, I don't know. But I suspect it's not empty talk. I think Lincoln Riley really does want to go out and field a defense that stops people rather than a defense that gives up 40-something a game. It's not fun to be an offensive coordinator for a team whose defense gives up 44 points a game, right? That's not great. It means that you have to score every time you get the ball. I don't think Lincoln Riley wants to be in that position again. So, not a sure thing, but I am optimistic, and I think that this hire could actually work out pretty well.
Okay. Hope your cough feels better. We'll give you a little time out here. It wasn't a home run hire, using baseball analogy, but it was a triple, and I'll take a triple. I think that there were other people they contacted who may have turned them down. So you go with the best option in the long range future. So I had no problem with Lynn being named, even if it was just on one season of work. Also, the schedule that he went up against was was pretty cotton at UCLA for the most part, right? But you go with what we scheduled, and he did quite well, no doubt about it. In terms of, I think Lincoln Riley's mind is what happened when UCLA played SC, and if I recall correctly, SC only had 7 points, so that's. But then again, the SC offense had sputtered in consistency in the second half of the season. They played, of course, better teams. So how much of it was the system, or how much of it was Lincoln Riley's offense fell upon Lincoln Riley's lap? You can speculate that all you want. I think that I liked the way he has gone about, and I'm talking about Lynn here, about attacking recruiting and who he's recruiting. In fact, when I was with Eric and we were doing the 4 Down show, one of the questions that Eric posed was, what is the first things he should do? And I think I made a heavy emphasis on recruit, and contact all the guys, not only externally, but also within your own program. You got to have people buy in. I think they're receptive to it. In terms of Lincoln Riley and his comments, he was out there to make sure that all his talking points were consumed locally and nationally by the media. This all of a sudden, this epiphany that we're going to be everything's going towards defense. Well, consider what situation he's in. He's getting tattooed nationally about his defenses, not only this year, but everyone starts dredging up back to the Oklahoma years. So that's always a bad sign. So he knows he's got to, whatever he says, he has to prove it. And this goes back to him. He's the CEO. So my feeling with Lincoln Riley is, okay, here you got it, dude. You have said this is what you're going to have. You said you're going to have the best defensive staff in America. I think I heard that today. So when it comes down to things, I think Mark kind of brought up this, non-negotiables. Does that mean his coaching staff? And we're going to find out. We know how Lincoln Riley feels about loyalty toward his staff, which is, I think, admirable, honestly. But then, he's talking about all these philosophical changes that he wants. Well, did he just find out about this? He brought Alex Grinch over. It sounded to me like he was kind of throwing Alex under the bus a little bit. Maybe that wasn't his intention, but that was the impression that I got when I was listening to him.
Seems
I
like a good
agreed
place
with.
for Alex Grinch, though, doesn't it, Greg?
Well, I'll say this. Whatever Alex Grinch did or didn't do, I think he worked hard at it. But I think that if Lincoln Riley knew these things, and maybe he didn't, but it obviously after 2 years at SC, it wasn't a good fit. But we'll see about Mr. Riley and how his defensive verbiage comes true this season, which is going to be an awful, terrible challenge to try to all of a sudden turn out, to be one of the great defensive teams that the school has ever seen. I don't think anybody's expecting that, but it's an interesting thing. I'm gonna just sit there and enjoy watching how it happens. And certainly it's going to be something that recruits are going to be watching. I do think he'll be a good recruiter. I think, he just has to flash his NFL credentials. Players listen, that's where they all want to go to the NFL. So we'll see. All right, moving on here. Fans, ever been caught in the last minute ticket frenzy? The stress, uncertainty, it's crunch time. You don't need it, but guess what? There's a game-changing solution. It's called Game Time. Imagine this, effortless ticket buying for all your favorite sports, music, comedy, and theater events. No more frantic searches. Game Time is your ultimate ticket buddy. That sure sounds good to me. You want some perks? Okay. How about incredible deals on last-minute tickets and a rock-solid best price guarantee? Say goodbye to ticket anxiety and hello to the sheer joy of being in the moment. The USC regular season has been completed. Trojans are headed to the DirecTV San Diego Holiday Bowl for a date with college football playoff number 15, Louisville Cardinals, on Wednesday, December 27th at Petco Park. You can check out Game Time for the best ticket options for the Holiday Bowl. And a reminder, also check out Game Time for the best ticket values for SC basketball games at the Galen Center. So check out the Game Time tickets after watching or listening to today's Inside the Trojans Huddle. And aside from USC tickets, you can also head to Game Time for Rams, Chargers, Lakers, Clippers, tickets to all your favorite LA teams. And don't forget those concerts as well. Flash deals, easy access, seat view images, unbeatable best price guarantee, event protection. Game Time has it all, from sports to rock concerts. So here's the deal. Head to gametime.co. That's gametime.co. That's co, not .com. Download the app, create an account, use Trojans, the code Trojans for $20 off your first purchase. You ready to dive in? As for buying tickets, it's easy as tapping on your phone. Tickets are sent straight to your phone. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Trojans for $20 off. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code Trojans for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, second quarter. The Trojans are headed to the DirecTV Holiday Bowl in San Diego to face the ACC's Louisville Cardinals. First, the big news. Although probably not shocking, Lincoln Riley confirmed at his Monday morning media scrum that quarterback Caleb Williams will not be playing in the Holiday Bowl. No reason was given, but there's little doubt that it's only a matter of time until Caleb officially declares for this spring's NFL draft. We will have more on Caleb's situation at the halftime section following this second quarter. There's also no doubt that the starting quarterback for the Trojans in the Holiday Bowl will be sophomore Miller Moss, who figures to be the starting quarterback heading into spring ball as well. For the calendar record, the Holiday Bowl will be played on Wednesday, December 27th at Petco Park. Also home to the baseball San Diego Padres. Kickoff time again is 5 p.m. Pacific, and it'll be televised on Fox. As for the Trojans, Holiday Bowl opponent, the CHP's number 15, Louisville Cardinal. They are led by first-year head coach Jeff Brom, who guided the Cardinals to its first 10-win season since 2013 and first conference title game in school history. Louisville finished the regular season at 10-3 overall, 7-1 in the ACC, but lost 16-6 to the CFP's number 5 Florida State Seminoles in Saturday night's ACC championship game. And by the way, Louisville's 7-1 record in conference matched their all-time best ACC record. This will be Louisville's 26th all-time bowl appearance, and the Cardinals hold a 12-13 postseason record. Cardinals will be making their first Holiday Bowl appearance, while the Trojans will be marking their fourth Holiday Bowl appearance. As for the Trojans, their last trip to the Holiday Bowl, which was guided by former head coach Clay Helton, was in 2019, which resulted in that disastrous 49-24 loss to the Iowa Hawkeyes at Qualcomm Stadium. The Trojans again have lost 5 of the last 6 games here in 2023. They'll try to right the ship against Louisville and provide Lincoln Riley just his second bowl victory in 5 tries as a head coach. And as an added Holiday Bowl note, Coach Riley did say on Monday the running back Austin Jones will play, but he also mentioned that the Trojans would be without naming players, some other players on the team who won't participate. So with all that long-winded background on Louisville, here's this deal, panel. Your overall thoughts and impressions on the Trojans playing Louisville in the Holiday Bowl. Good matchup, bad matchup, intriguing matchup, no-win situation matchup. What do you think, Chris?
It's a tough matchup. Louisville's a good football team. And, I mean, this is a team that really took it to Notre Dame. And that's something that I think will catch our guys' attention because they remember what happened with the Irish. I think it's probably about the best matchup. For a while, it looked like Clemson might be the opponent, and Clemson may have been a little better in this regard. But I think Louisville's a good enough opponent. I think it's going to get our guys' attention, and they'll show up ready to play. One of the problems USC has through the years is anytime they're in a second or third tier bowl, it's because they're extraordinarily disappointed. And they're usually playing a team from a non-Power 5 conference, which couldn't be more excited to go out and play USC on national television. We get it handed to us. I think that with Louisville, at least, our guys are going to come ready to play, and they're going to know they're playing an opponent that could embarrass them if they're not careful. That being said, Louisville's a good football team. They're a better football team this year than USC has been. And USC is now going to have to figure out a way to score points without Caleb Williams. The offensive line is going to have to play much, much better than they have because they're going to have to be able to run the ball and protect the quarterback. I don't think Miller Moss is going to be able just to run around for 7 or 8 seconds and throw the ball 50 yards downfield. And I don't know if USC can do that. I mean, we don't really know. We haven't seen it yet this year. We also don't know what to make of the defense. Obviously, you know, the new defensive coordinator won't be a part of coaching the defense right now. I do think that USC made some strides defensively after Alex Grinch left. They made a real effort to actually stop the run. Didn't always work, but they actually tried. And I think they're going to have to make a real effort here because they're going to have to try to make Louisville one-dimensional. So, I mean, do I think is this the matchup that USC fans wanted going into the season? No. Am I excited about this? Am I going to buy, you know, Holiday Bowl 2023 gear and wear it for the next 3 years? Pretty good chance I'm not. But it's not a terrible game, all things considered. And I think it's a game that can get our guys' attention. Whether that's enough, I don't know. Because I don't know how good USC is capable of being this year. And if they don't play a lot better against Louisville, then I think they're probably going to get their heads handed to them, which I don't want. But I mean, look, honestly, 7-5 to 7-6. I mean, does it really freaking matter? It doesn't. The season's a disaster no matter what happens. You can't salvage it against Louisville, and it doesn't become more of a nightmare if you lose to Louisville. So whatever. Have fun playing the game. Let's see what happens. We'll get a chance to see, I'm guessing, both quarterbacks, right? Makes no sense not to play Malachi Nelson, at least some in this game. And that'll be pretty intriguing to see what those guys can do. I think you're going to see some of the young running backs play in this game. That's intriguing, right? These are guys we're going to have to rely on who I think are pretty good. So there'll be some interesting things to watch, and hopefully USC can play well enough up front that they make it a game. I think they will, but this year I wouldn't exactly bet the mortgage payment on
it. Mark, would you bet the mortgage payment on this game?
No, not at all. Louisville, they're coming into this game on a 2-game losing streak. They lost their rivalry game to Kentucky. We saw they just lost this past weekend to Florida State. USC's riding a 3-game losing streak. So hopefully, you know, USC is motivated, just wanting to not ride a 4-game losing streak. And you know, USC hasn't won a bowl game, and I can't remember the last time. But what Chris was talking about here, it's a good matchup. Louisville's a very balanced team, at least if you're looking at it statistically. They put up 420 yards per game. They're scoring 31 points per game. They might do that against USC's defense. And even though Louisville struggled offensively against Florida State, that's a good defense that they went up against. Louisville's quarterback played it, against USC last year when he was Cal's quarterback, and he lit USC up. So we know what happens when somebody goes up against USC's defense. USC's defense gets lit up by somebody. Hopefully, this time Jack Plummer doesn't get to experience another 400-yard performance like he did 2 years ago. So again, yeah, they throw the ball well, they run the ball well. They're 175 on the ground, 245 through the air. That's going to stress USC's defense. So we'll see how they come out looking. How much of D'Anton Lynn's new philosophical defensive scheme is going to be implemented? I don't think a whole lot of it, but I'm sure we'll see a little bit of it. Does USC want to look at the tape where Louisville, kind of handled Notre Dame easily? Let's not forget, just like USC turned the ball over 5 times in South Bend, Notre Dame turned the ball over 5 times when they played that game in Louisville. Now you credit Louisville's defense; they created those turnovers. With that said, if USC can just hold on the ball, see what these young guys can do, I think it'll be a competitive game. I'm hoping it's a competitive game. If USC and Louisville not playing each other ever before should hopefully draw some fan interest. So, what is it? Eric, that's your neck of the woods. What is that? A 52,000 seat stadium, somewhere around there. It should. I'm sorry.
It's 50,000. That's what they listed for Petco Park and football for the Holiday Bowl. 50,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So I anticipate a decent sized crowd. Other than that, Chris touched on it. It's a lower tier bowl game, and depending on how motivated USC is, will determine how well this team plays. Now, I don't know. Have we found out why Malachi Nelson wasn't available to be in uniform against UCLA? Lincoln Riley he mentioned him briefly, but if he wasn't available then, is he going to be available to back up Miller Moss in this game?
That's an excellent question.
We know we're down to 3 running backs, 2 true freshmen. One hasn't touched the ball since September 9th. Fortunately, Austin Jones is suiting up. But right now, what do you got, a quarterback?
All right. Well, maybe some of these answers can be provided by Eric McKinney. Eric, what do you think? You grew up in the San Diego area. Is this game going to sell? Your overall perspective on the game itself.
I don't care. I don't care who wins. It does not matter. Does not matter in the least 2 wins. What I like about the matchup is that it's not Duke or Boston College or Georgia Tech, right? And those when you talk about the non-Rose bowl games that USC goes to, that's typically who they get, and they don't show up and they get run over. They give up 280 rushing yards to a team like that. Grizz is right. Louisville should get their attention. I mean, you should show up. What really should get their attention too, you're playing for jobs right now. If you're USC, if you don't show up, I don't know if it's a guarantee that you're going to show up for spring ball. I mean, that's kind of where you are. The guys that are leaving are playing for NFL jobs. The guys that still have eligibility are playing either to get a job next year or get a job somewhere else via the transfer portal after this. I mean, that's kind of where we are in college football, especially when you have a new coach coming in on a side of the ball that needs to be, snow globe shaken up on the defensive side right now. So that's what I'm going to be most curious about. Who shows up, who plays with their hair on fire, and who looks like they want it. Again, if this Louisville team is good, they went kind of toe-to-toe with a team that a lot of people think should be in the playoff right now, quarterback or no quarterback. They've won some games. They've been tough. They don't rank. I mean, defensively, they're top 20-ish in most of the big categories. So this is a team that can play defense. USC is going to be without a quarterback. You're going to have a ton of maybe answers on that side. It's ever since Caleb Williams has been here, the whole talk has been, yeah, but what's this team without Caleb Williams? Well, we're about to find out. And so I think that to me is interesting. But I think you're also going to get a look. You're going to get a look at some freshmen. This doesn't count for your 4-game redshirt rule. So you can throw everybody out there. And we've heard Lincoln Riley talk a lot about, playing young guys and this and that. And USC just never got into a space where they could roll a ton of guys off the bench. I'd be curious in this one, since again, a win or loss doesn't really matter. Do you go kind of deep into the bench and throw a bunch of freshmen out and see what they can do in this game? Because again, when he mentioned we're going to be without other players too, whether that's injury, whether that's opt-out, whether that's whatever that is, you're going to get a sense, I think, of pretty deep into this USC roster. So how they match up, what they can do. I mean, Louisville is going to run the ball. They ran the ball sort of all year. USC is going to have to figure out how to stop that. But the ins and outs and scheme matchup and that kind of stuff, just who wants to play? Who wants to show up and play and kind of prove themselves to D'Anton Lynn and to this program? I think moving forward, that for me is the key in this one.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you asked Lincoln Riley, I'm sure he would say this game does matter, because if they lose this game, and from my perspective, while 7-5 isn't good, 7-6 is really bad, because the knives will be throwing against the target of Lincoln Riley, because they'll go to his bowl record, they'll go to Caleb Williams. If it wasn't for Caleb Williams, you'd have a losing record, right? There are so many things that could put USC and Lincoln Riley especially in a negative light. My question is do the SC players really get fired up to play this game? I've got my doubts. And the reason for that is the old saying, don't play the name, play the game. I don't know if Louisville would get many people's attention as a power. I mean, I know that Oregon State for the Sun Bowl is all excited because they're playing Notre Dame. I believe that Louisville will bring fans. San Diego's a great town. They do a good job on the Holiday Bowl, having been to that game and covered it for the times that USC was there. But my guess is that SC fans are probably not fired up about this. I think if it would have been Clemson, I think they really would be fired up, because Clemson's been a brand name for quite a while on the national stage. Louisville is kind of like, for old people, they'll still say, well, Louisville's a basketball school. They're still living in the Denny Crum world. But, I think that for SC, and I think Eric made a great point, players are playing for their positions going into spring, who may not even, if they don't come to play, they might find themselves in the portal looking around when they get the hint. I don't think you're going to play a lot next year. So there's a lot of undercurrent from a football standpoint. As far as the glitz and glamour of it all, Louisville will come to play. They're going to play USC. That's still the USC, the storied USC. And, I think that Lincoln Riley is going to be put on the spot here, whether he can get his team up for it. They obviously weren't up for it for UCLA. If he couldn't get up for UCLA, you got a real challenge here against Louisville. I think if they played Clemson, the players probably would have greater attention to it. But it's going to have a lot of ramifications. I think if they can win the game, it'll say a lot about a lot of things. Hopefully they can win the game. But there's a challenge there, both physically and mentally. So with that, a reminder to USC football fans, following the conclusion of each and every USC home and away game, including the Holiday Bowl, WeAreSC brings you 5 things, a timely game analysis from moderator and WeAreSC editor-in-chief Eric McKinney, along with columnist Mark Culkin and myself. again, that will follow on that day. The game, of course, at 5 o'clock. So we have to do our job right afterwards and get stuff done. And as soon as that, we tape the 5 things, and then it goes up as quickly as we can get it up. So with that, here's the bulletin, the big story. We've changed the script a little bit to be in sync with the latest headlines. So we got to talk about Caleb Williams and his legacy. As USC fans and all college football fans now know, USC's All-American quarterback, 2022 Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams, according to head coach Lincoln Riley, will not be playing in the Holiday Bowl, which probably also signals his career as a Trojan is over. For the record, Caleb himself has not made any official statement regarding the Holiday Bowl or his NFL future. But that being said, and given the timing of Lincoln Riley's Monday's announcement regarding Caleb, let's use halftime to discuss your overall thoughts, opinions regarding Caleb Williams, his time at USC, where you place him in the pantheon of USC Trojans football lore. So how are you looking at this thing, Eric? Who is Caleb Williams? He came, he's apparently going. How do you see his legacy?
I think he's right up there, at least in recent, and I say recent, like last 20 years. I think he's right up there with Reggie Bush when you talk about the most exciting guys to watch offensively for USC. I think he's the best quarterback, and it's not going to be the winningest quarterback, right? There's a different discussion for those guys that win national championships at USC get held kind of in a different light. But when you look at just when he took the field, when he had the ball in his hands, you scooch forward a little bit and you kind of laser focused every time he had it. And every time he took a snap, you just thought something's happening here. Something good is going to happen. And that's why the sort of second half of the year and that schedule that they had, and just watching the defense kind of fail game after game after game to give him any kind of support was so frustrating in 2023. And I don't think long term you're going to remember that. I think you're going to remember the serious highlights, the scrambling ability, the running ability, the deep balls, all of that kind of stuff. He did so much of that I think when we're talking about, 10, 15, 20 years from now, that's the stuff it's going to be really easy to remember. There's things, especially again, late in the year when it felt like that pressure was on and he had to do so much. And there was all that, again, what you assume was frustration, just kind of building with the offense and how it was functioning. That you think, oh, you could do this, you could do that. But stepping all the way back and just kind of thinking about the feelings you had when he was playing at USC, I think you're going to remember him up there among the great USC players.
Chris?
Yeah, I think Eric's onto something with the Reggie Bush comparison. I think those probably are the two most exciting players I've seen in my whatever it's been, 40 years plus of watching USC football. But Caleb Williams had a lot more on his shoulders than Reggie, right? I mean, Reggie had a really good passing game. He had a really good defense. He had another running back that got about as many carries as he did, who was outstanding. So Reggie was a guy who could contribute highlight plays, and he could win you games, and he did. But he wasn't a guy that you relied upon each and every week to be fantastic. That's what USC asked Caleb Williams to do. And for the most part, that's what they got. Caleb Williams is the most talented quarterback in USC history. I think he's probably also the best. Matt Leinart has a better resume. But Matt Leinart was surrounded by dudes, and he had a great coaching staff. So it's a different situation. I don't know that Caleb Williams is the best player in USC history, even though he's probably the best guy at the most important position. USC's had a lot of other guys that I'm not sure had a weakness. And I'm not convinced that Caleb Williams doesn't have a weakness. I think he does. And it's something that he's going to have to work on. when he goes to the NFL, and hopefully he'll be in the right situation where he can. Caleb Williams, in part because he couldn't trust his offensive line, in part because Caleb Williams rightly wanted to protect the football. Caleb Williams was either unable or unwilling to get rid of the ball on time within the offense and throw the ball into small windows. That's exactly what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. He has the talent to do it, but he's going to have to learn to do it. And maybe more importantly, he's going to have to be willing to do it. Caleb Williams did not, I mean, he didn't throw very many picks, right? He didn't. He was not a gunslinger like Brett Favre, where he just chucked the ball into places and hope it all worked out. That's not his style of play. But that would sometimes hurt him, because there are times when he probably needed to get rid of the ball and try to make a throw with his otherworldly talent, and he wouldn't. He would hold it and wait for something to happen. I don't want to spend too much time knocking him. I think that was a significant weakness, and I think it hurt USC. That being said, what really hurt USC is that they couldn't protect the guy, right? And that they couldn't play defense. And if Caleb Williams had played on just about any of Pete Carroll's teams, you would have seen USC elevate from being the best team in college football to probably the best team in college football history any of those years, because he was that good. And every time we saw him play, literally every game we saw him play as a Trojan, he would do 1, 2, or 3 things that would just blow your mind. I mean, it got to the point where when Caleb Williams is sprinting to his left and he throws a dart into a really small window 25 yards downfield, you just said, oh yeah, that's just Caleb being Caleb. But Caleb being Caleb was amazing, right? I mean, he would make throws that maybe Pat Mahomes could make, or Aaron Rodgers, maybe Josh Allen, right? There are only a handful of guys in the world who can make those plays, and he would do it every week. Just an extraordinary talent, and seemed to be a really good teammate too. People knocked him because they said he was aloof, but what I saw from Caleb Williams was a guy who was a gigantic star, who came to a program that was something of a mess and took all of that on his shoulders. He was in the spotlight. He had huge expectations. He was getting huge checks. And what he did is we tried to find a way to include his teammates, to include them in the NIL opportunities he had, to include them in the Heisman ceremony. And anytime people were shining a spotlight on Caleb, he did his best to shine that light on the guys around him. He was a good teammate, and from what I can tell, a good dude. And while this is a bitter disappointment for USC's fans, and no doubt for Caleb Williams, he should go down as one of the all-time great Trojans who sadly wasn't put in a position where he could win it all. Because give him a slightly better roster, and that's exactly what he would have done.
Mark Culkin, you've been around a long time watching USC football. What is Caleb Williams' legacy?
I think comparing Caleb Williams to anybody but Caleb Williams probably isn't fair. As far as if you want to have the debate, who was the most exciting Trojan ever, Caleb Williams or Reggie Bush, that would be a fun debate. I think Caleb actually does compare to Carson Palmer, from the fact that they both played on teams that were limited. They're going to both, leave without having really won anything other than a Heisman, which is great. I mean, that's a team award as much as it is an individual award. But I think it really highlights what their careers were at USC. I loved Caleb Williams 2022 versus 2023. Caleb Williams, to me, this season, it's kind of like Greg's internet. It starts out really, really strong, but the longer it goes, it just kind of fizzled out. And I don't know if it's because it's too much stress is being put on it, but that's kind of, the way it felt this season. And you don't want to blame him for that, but as far as what Caleb brought to the program, Man, a lot of great memories. I mean, Chris touched on a whole bunch of them, including what he did off the field. You think about what he did in that game against Notre Dame last year at the Coliseum. You know, again, similar to like Carson Palmer, he had a really great game against Notre Dame at the Coliseum that helped propel him to the Heisman. It's those types of things that'll stick out. But, you know, not having that complete team around him, especially in year two, all of a sudden it was just kind of a matter of fact. Oh, Caleb's done. He's not playing in the bowl game. Hope you enjoyed him. That's all, folks. I mean, it's like he was here and he's gone. So hopefully there'll be enough memories that will resurface, and maybe USC will figure it out, get it right, and they'll have Caleb Williams and Reggie Bush, you know, walking out of the tunnel hand by hand, watching their, you know, Heisman numbers together back up in the peristyle. They got to figure this thing out, because if you're going to make that connection, that comparison to the most exciting players to ever wear the Cardinal and gold, I think it starts and stops with those two. I know, Greg, you want to go back to OJ, but let's keep it in, you know, the regular helmet era.
Well, after those positive words, building my self-esteem. Well, I'll tell you what, his legacy is going to grow when he leaves USC, because, as Mark pointed out, his jersey number will be in that peristyle end. I don't know if Reggie Bush's will be there, you know, at the same time. I suspect not, but it could happen. I think that when you see that in mortality, when you see the Heisman trophies in, you know, in the Heritage Hall, I think when you start talking about how does he get remembered, you know, I think there's going to be a lot of things that go down in his legacy. You know, Mike Garrett was a great superstar player at SC, but, you know, he never went to the Rose Bowl. So everyone knew at the time he was a great player, but he didn't go to the Rose Bowl. You know, some of it was he fumbled in the game against UCLA that didn't help his cause, but, you know, he would tell you firsthand that, you know, his most disappointing memory of SC is that he couldn't get to the Rose Bowl. And I think with Caleb, the thing about Caleb is it wasn't, his first year was great, superstar great. And I think that he played with great confidence. I think as the season wore on, I think he was hit so many times. I think he was rushed. I think the pressure of, I mean, the guy was on television. It seemed like if you watched a college football game, the Dr. Pepper. I mean, I don't think anybody has ever been through that before. I mean, there's been commercials, but not while a guy is still playing. And it was really incredible that he could handle the pressure like he did. So whatever negatives come that he didn't make an official announcement yet or that sort of stuff, you know, at some point he's a human being, for goodness sakes. But I think that he will be elected to the USC Athletic Hall of Fame. So he'll be immortalized. If he has a tremendous NFL career, he will always be remembered as the guy that came from USC. Look at what Matt Leinart did. He did not have a career of any measurement of success, basically, in the NFL. But look at him today. He's Matt Leinart of USC, and he's an immortal college football player. Certainly, he deserves every bit of it. And I think Caleb Williams in time will, I think with his personality, he can evolve into a personality that can be on talk shows and hosts of them. So there's a lot to Caleb Williams that are beyond football. So I think in the overall spirit, his legacy will burn bright in a different number of areas. All right, friends, again, we strongly encourage those of you watching Inside the Trojans Huddle on sites like YouTube, click the like and red subscriber buttons. It's greatly valued, appreciated. It's free. You can also listen to Inside the Trojans Huddle on many available podcast sites. And be sure to check out WeAreSC.com and become a premium subscriber. All right, second half kickoff, third quarter. It's time for the Big Ten lightning round. Panel, respond to the following 10 questions with quick responses. We'll go in this order: Mark, Eric, Chris, and myself. So here we go. Question 1, yes or no? Do you believe that Lincoln Riley lived up to his end of the bargain in supporting Caleb Williams during his time at USC? Mark, yes or no?
No.
Okay, Eric.
I mean, it's a tough yes or no question to answer there. I mean, supporting Caleb and moving out to LA and becoming a better quarterback and all that, yes. In winning a national championship and doing everything you need to do defensively to put an entire team together, clearly no. There was more to do.
Chris?
Yeah, the answer is no, because Caleb Williams needed a defense that could perform at least a decent level. And Lincoln Riley made a decision that everybody else in the world knew was wrong, and it backfired on
Yes, and I will say no for all the reasons that my three compadres here said. I think it'll always be the question of what was Lincoln Riley held accountable for. And I think it started off with not supporting Caleb with a defense that would allow his offense to take him to the playoffs. Question 2, yes or no, more than 25,000 USC fans will attend the Holiday Bowl against Louisville, yes or no, Mark?
No.
Eric?
No.
After some vacillating there, Chris?
Well, it's a good time, right? The 27th, you have Christmas in LA. You still can drive down a couple days later, drive back up. They should.
It's a midweek game though. That's the killer.
Chris?
I'm not vacillating at all. No way.
All right. Okay. No way. All right. I say no. I think if it was Clemson, yes. Louisville, I don't think so. Question 3, former USC running back receiver Rayleigh Brown has entered the transfer portal officially. When it's all said and done, will he transfer to Oregon, Mark Culkin?
No.
All right. Eric?
Yeah, I'm taking the field also.
Okay. Chris?
He probably will, just to make me furious, but I don't think he should. I'm not convinced that's a good fit for him. I hope he goes elsewhere.
It's Rayleigh Brown right now. Chris?
I say that if I'm put on the spot, I would say yes, that he would go there if they offer him, because they will run the ball. Question 4, yes or no? Were you happy to see that Chip Kelly was retained for another season as UCLA's head football coach? Mark?
Yes, sure. Why not?
Eric?
Yeah.
Chris?
I mean, I don't feel that strongly one way or the other. Chip Kelly, there's some things Chip Kelly can do well, and while it's possible that UCLA would have hired somebody worse than Chip, they may have stumbled into somebody better. So whatever. I don't care about Chip Kelly.
I would say I was happy to see him get another year, because it just showcases how there's that Clay Helton syndrome of, can we just move on from this guy? And the school obviously is not going to move on from him, and they're going to pay a price for that. Question 5, yes or no? Are you surprised that Trojans head coach Lincoln Riley flew recently to meet with Kansas State portal transfer quarterback Will Howard, who has 1 season of eligibility left? Mark?
I wasn't surprised. So no.
Okay. Eric?
No.
Chris?
I wasn't surprised that he's meeting with transfer portal quarterbacks, but I was surprised by Will Howard. To be honest, I haven't watched K-State play all year. I had to look him up.
Yeah, and I agree. I was surprised only because of Will Howard, but what message does it send to Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson? Honestly, I wonder what they were thinking seeing that. Question 6, yes or no? Although Marshawn Lloyd said on Sunday that he's entering the NFL draft, will he play against in the Holiday Bowl against Louisville? I guess we've kind of got that answer right. Are we all in agreement that no, he's not going to play?
Correct.
Correct. All right. Question 7, yes or no? Lincoln Riley will bring in at least 2 running backs from the portal. Mark?
I think he might have to. I'm gonna change my answer to yes.
Okay. Eric?
I think you're okay with one, but I don't think it would be a bad idea to bring in two.
Chris?
I mean, that's a position where guys get banged up and it's a small room. So I think you'll probably bring in two.
Yeah, you got 3 freshmen. You need some veterans back there. Just bottom line.
Yeah, and I agree. And one good thing that Lincoln Riley has done, probably should have done more of it, is he allows players that want to showcase their skills, like a Lloyd, gave him just enough carries that he looked like he was ready for the NFL, no doubt about it. Question 8, yes or no? You have gotten into a verbal or physical, have you, meaning panel, have you ever gotten into a verbal or physical confrontation with an opponent's fans before, during, or after a USC home or away game? Mark, have you gotten into it with somebody from the other team, fan club?
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised by that? Eric?
No.
And why am I not surprised about that either? Chris?
Just like trash talking back and forth, yes.
You can take, okay.
I've never gotten in a physical altercation, although during the Bush push game, some drunk idiot Irish guy sitting in front of us turned around and for no reason other than the fact that we were in USC stuff, pushed my best friend and his guys restrained him, so nothing came of it. So I don't know if that counts or not, but it's the only bad experience I've ever had in South Bend. I mean, it's the only experience I've had with a Notre Dame fan that was bad in South Bend. Lately, I've had a whole bunch of horrible experiences there.
No, I have never gotten into a verbal or physical confrontation. I always say, I don't know where this other person's coming from. I don't know if he's a black belt in karate. I don't know who his friends are in this day and age. I just kind of just keep my head straight and don't get into it. Question 9, yes or no? Have you ever left a USC football game early, even when the final outcome was never in doubt? Mark?
Recently. Not working, but recent times, yes.
As a fan. Okay. Eric?
Yeah, we left the USC Cal 2018 game at halftime. It was late and was there with family. So it was 14-0 when I left, and then you guys all let Cal come back and win. So I'm not taking responsibility for that.
Not surprising. Chris?
My old policy was always to stay until the final gun, no matter what. And that was true through the Paul Hackett years, through whatever. But that did change during the Clay Helton years. And the first time I ever left a USC game early was at South Bend, down 35-0 to the Irish. I was sitting next to Luther Bradley and all of his teammates, and I was being taunted mercilessly. And I had to ask myself, do I want to sit through 2 more quarters of this merely so I get struck in that traffic? And I said no, and I felt good about that decision every day since.
All right, now question 10. We always try to do a little offbeat question here. So, guys, did you go to your high school prom? If you did, what do you remember? And if you didn't go to your prom, why not, Mark Culkin?
I did. I don't remember anything, and I don't want to remember anything.
That's where he got in a fight with a UCLA fan.
Eric was there.
Eric?
Yeah, I went with my my now wife.
Oh, Kleenex, touching.
You asked the question.
I asked the question and you delivered the answer. Well, congratulations, and it worked out. Chris?
I did. I went with Eric's now wife. No,
And fought a UCLA fan.
I went my junior year. It wasn't a great time. I skipped my senior year.
All right. I didn't go to my prom either year. I thought it was a big waste of money. Why? Unless you had a girlfriend, and I didn't at the time. Why would you pay in those days, like today, they $500? Why would you pay all that money for one date? Now, when I was teaching at Edison High School, I chaperoned the prom a couple of times. And then I was doing varsity basketball over at Santa Ana High School. You know, I would chaperone the prom. It was always funny because I'd be standing there just kind of relaxing. And then some guys, you know, they were in my class or guys on my team or whatever, they walk up and they go, "Hey, Coach Katz, you having a good time?" I said, "Yeah, that's okay. It's fine." I go, you having a good time? They go, no. I go, why aren't you having a good time? Oh, she's in the bathroom with all of her friends. And you know, we hardly even say anything. Or I said, well, how many times you've gone out with her? Oh, this is the first time. I said, this is your first time and you spent all that money? You go, yeah. Oh man, I'll never do this again. I said, well, I'll hold you to it. If you're a junior, you know, we'll see if we see each other again as a senior. So no, I thought for one day to spend all that money was a big waste. And you know, people say, oh, you're gonna regret never going to your prom, or you'll never live it down. I go, you know what? I could care less. It hasn't fazed me since. So that was the way it goes. All right. As we always do here, between the third and fourth quarter of the huddle, we are going to light our symbolic torch, Coliseum symbolic torch. For those of you that are not familiar with the USC routine, having never seen a game, maybe the Big Ten fans that are viewing, between the third and fourth quarter, they light the torch of the Coliseum, the famous torch, and then they play some music to it, the William Tell Overture. And it's quite a production, very symbolic if you go to a USC game. And a reminder, while the torch burns, for all you recruitaholics out there, don't forget to watch WeAreSC.com's weekly recruiting video show, Recruiting Roundup, with nationally respected Scott Schrader, the best in the business, and host Dylan Brazier. And remember as well to watch Friday's 4 Down show with moderator Eric McKinney, along with myself, bringing you the latest info on USC's next opponent, which will be, of course, Louisville Cardinal. And this is all sponsored by Prize Pick. So we head into the fourth quarter. Always a special time for our viewers. This is where you ask us questions. We give you our perspective and answers. So let's get to it. Question 1 from Blade Runner in Tejas. The Seminole defense, that's the Florida State Seminoles, defense dominating Louisville in the ACC title game made me question CLR, that's Coach Lincoln Riley's offensive first philosophy. When was the last game our defense played with such intensity? All right, panel, when's the last game that SC's defense played with a lot of intensity?
Oregon State 2022.
Wow. Okay. Any other viewpoints on this one?
How about that game where Clay Helton beat Chris Peterson up in Seattle?
Now that's a good one.
That was a really good performance on both sides of the ball.
Yes, it was. I can remember.
Clay Helton praise. Whoa.
It will never happen. It will never happen.
Come on, give the guy a hey. He's
I
going
like to be fair. I like to be fair. The reason
Just caught me by surprise. That's all.
I understand. I'm unpredictable, Mark.
Well, isn't Clay Helton also going to a bowl game this year?
I wouldn't know.
I believe he is. Yes, his team finished, I believe, 6-6. So they're going to a
right.
Yeah. Okay, so Eric, nothing strikes you a memory of any time you thought they played with great intensity on defense?
No, those are fine. I mean, I was going to go way back. Like
what's way back?
Well, I mean, the first game that came to mind was there was like a 13-10 USC Stanford win up in Palo Alto, like 2014 or something like that. But I mean, that tells you, right? My mind immediately skipped like a decade going back because I assumed that there would be nothing in recent history.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome, no doubt about it. All right, question 2 from Trojan fan in the Valley. Do you think D'Anton Lynn will bring Ken Norton Jr. to the SC staff? Who do you think the big money staff additions we are hearing about on the boards is? Lastly, who would you want him to add to his staff, and who would you let go? Now, this is a very sensitive subject when you start talking about who would you let go and you start naming names. So I don't know if you're going to get the answer to that particular point of the question, but all right, panel, what about the other parts of it? Is Norton going to come back to USC?
Look, here's what I'll say. So I'm not naming names.
Okay.
Start fresh. If you're going to go new philosophical differences across the board, let D'Anton Lynn come in. Let him bring in who he wants. Whether he keeps somebody or just brings in a whole new staff, I don't care. But let's make Lincoln Riley back up his words. It's going to be the best staff in college football. That's all.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I agree with what you said, Mark. You know, if you're going to come out with comments, it's going to be the best staff. Of course, I hear that all the time from coaches. We're going to have the best staff in America. Well, I think Lincoln Riley really has to make an effort to make that happen because of the situation he's in. If he didn't have a 10-year contract and it was only 5 years, he'd really be feeling the heat.
Well, look, it seems like 11 million is the going market rate right now for your assistant coaching pool. Jonathan Smith is getting that at Michigan State. Elko's getting that at Texas A&M. I would hope USC is in that ballpark.
Any other comments about this? You guys, do you think he's going to bring in a whole new staff, or do you think that's?
I mean, nobody would possibly object with how bad they were last year if you just said we're changing every single thing about the defense. Nobody would. The flip side of that is, what sense do you have of what I mean, we saw glimpses when Alex Grinch was let go of, this looks a little bit different. These guys are playing a little bit different here. So how severely were hands tied behind backs on what they wanted to do, or how they would do different things with their position groups? Ultimately, you can be this kind of position coach under this coordinator and this kind of position coach under this coordinator. So if D'Anton Lynn comes in, gets to know the guys and goes, yes, we absolutely see eye to eye on this, and you're the guy that I want to coach, I don't know how much you let last year's performance play a role in that. Now, what I don't like is when coaches say, "Oh, I've already put the best staff together. I'm bringing everyone with me from the last stop I was at." I mean, Sark tried to do that with all his Washington guys coming down. Lincoln Riley kind of tried to do that a little bit with all the Oklahoma guys coming over, and it just becomes. I think there's a benefit to new ideas and new kind of mixing of people when you put a staff together. But yeah, if it turns out that it's just the guys who are already here and a couple UCLA guys coming over, the idea that you went and had this exhaustive, we're putting the best staff together idea, and they all happen to already live within 10 miles of each other, that doesn't exactly strike me as truthful.
And you know what also doesn't strike me as truthful, and maybe that's the wrong word, is that Lincoln Riley, on Monday, his press conference, he starts talking about what he sees as a defense, this complete 180, that I want big defensive linemen. I want this, I want that. Was that what he was thinking when he brought Alex Grinch over?
I think there's just too much on side. Like, big guys are better. You can defend the run well as not a huge, massive body. You can be quick. You can understand leverage. The problem with USC's guys were they were a little light, and then they'd get turned sideways and pushed into the sidelines. I mean, that was what was happening way too often. So I think that becomes the thing. Can you teach them how to defend the run at whatever size they are? And Lynn clearly did that at UCLA. They were unbelievable against the run this year.
Aaron Donald is undersized. You can make an argument he's the best interior defensive lineman in NFL history. He's undersized. You can be good with smaller guys. Eric's right. I mean, USC slanted so much that it was relatively simple just to keep pushing guys to the sideline in ways that open up gigantic gaps. But I would rather have big guys who are athletic than small guys. But, Mike Patterson wasn't huge. He was just unblockable.
Now, go ahead.
See what direction Wiley goes this offseason. Does he stay?
That'll be telling. Absolutely.
Right. All right. Trojan fan in the Valley has a second follow-up question. He says, sorry, love my Trojans, but we were just awful this year, especially on defense. What makes anyone think that we can beat this team, meaning Louisville, especially most likely with no Caleb Williams? Well, we know the answer to that. And no Marshawn Lloyd. I think we know the answer to that. Surprise, the spread has the Cardinals at only 6.5 point favorites. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's 8 now. I think climbing 9 and maybe getting a double digits at some point.
Has
Yeah.
it climbed since that announcement, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it should. But can USC beat Louisville? I mean, sure. USC has some athletes, get some turnovers, make a couple of plays, get a punt return from Zachariah Branch. Yeah, of course they could beat them. I don't know that they will, but it's not like this would be the biggest upset in college football history either, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not.
I just want to let that kind of resonate here for a couple seconds. USC is approaching a double-digit underdog status to Louisville. Okay.
Well, Louisville too. I mean, the idea that Louisville is going to come up I just mean for this game, absolutely fired up and ready to go. They had to have thought they were going to beat Florida State in the ACC championship game. Had to have. Florida State was playing with their third string quarterback. They win that game. They go to a New Year's Six Bowl. They lose that game. They're at the Holiday Bowl now. They've got guys that are going to opt out of this game. I mean, they're not. I cannot imagine that they come in with every single guy available, fired up and ready to play this game. So from the way I'm looking at kind of how things ended the year and what's going on with the programs, maybe USC is the more fired up team. Again, I mean, Louisville's probably going to have their starting quarterback, which is a good starting point, but I don't think that Louisville comes into this one just absolutely ready to go and firing on all cylinders.
I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of young offensive linemen playing for USC in this game.
Well,
so.
he said in his presser on Monday that they're ready to go. The freshmen are ready to go. So take that any way that you want. If he says they're ready to go, I suspect that would mean they're ready to go for Louisville. All right, question 3 from SC Fan in South Florida. Love the show. Can't wait until Tuesday of each week to listen to your comments and insights. Well, thank you very much, SC Fan in South Florida. With the talk of Will Howard getting a visit from Lincoln Riley, if Riley brings Howard to USC, what are the ramifications regarding Miller Moss and Malachi Nelson? Will one or both hit the portal at the announcement? Good question. What do you think, guys?
I don't know why it would have any significant repercussions on Malachi Nelson. He's going to be a redshirt freshman who didn't play his senior year and probably needs time. If you bring in a guy that has 1 year of eligibility and you're a redshirt freshman, there's no reason for you to go anywhere. Miller Moss is a different story, right? I mean, if he brings in Will Howard or someone like that, then Lincoln Riley is saying that he doesn't trust Miller Moss to run his offense to the level it needs to be run. I don't know that I'd be shocked to hear that's the case, right? But Miller Moss seems like he's probably a pretty decent football player. We don't see him in practice, but does anybody here think that Miller Moss is likely to compete for first team All Big Ten or All American honors? No. It's Lincoln Riley. That's what Lincoln Riley puts on the field. And there are guys who are going to want to play for Lincoln Riley because they know that's what he puts on the field. So do I think Miller Moss is going to be the starting quarterback next year? No. I'd be stunned if Miller Moss is a starting quarterback next year. I don't think he's that caliber player, but I think he's a good player. And he may very well stick around. He stuck around to this point, and so he may stick around still. But, you know, it's not exactly a surprise if Lincoln Riley says, I like to have elite guys at that position, and I can probably bring in somebody better than the people I have right now.
Look, you bring in a 1-year guy like a Will Howard, you're bringing him in because he's not coming to USC to compete for the spot. He's coming because he's being given the spot. So if that's the case, you are replacing 2 more quarterbacks most likely through the portal. Because let's remember, number 1, Lincoln Riley did not recruit Miller Moss when he was at Oklahoma. Number 2, he did recruit Malachi Nelson to be Caleb Williams' heir apparent. And if he's not ready going into his redshirt freshman season, I don't care what the reasons are, that's where he's not seeing the confidence. It's not with Miller, it's with Malachi. So yeah, he is playing a little bit of a quarterback roulette here. At least that's the way I see it.
If Malachi Nelson is going to be that upset that he's not going to get the starting job as a really green redshirt freshman, Malachi needs somebody with some experience and some life wisdom to talk to him. Miller Moss is a different story. Miller Moss realizes he's never going to start at USC. But Malachi Nelson, if Malachi Nelson bells from playing for Lincoln Riley because, I'm not starting as a freshman, that's just stupid.
Well, look at Lincoln Riley's history, and this isn't a knock. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Lincoln Riley's most productive quarterbacks were transfers to him. It's not a matter of recruiting and developing. And that's the gamble is, is Lincoln Riley going to recruit a quarterback, stick with it, develop him, and continue to play him? Or is he just going to recruit a quarterback and say, all right, well, that dude over there who's been playing for a couple of years, he's ready. I'm going to go get him instead. I don't know if that's how you want to build the culture in a locker room. You got to look at big picture here.
Now look around the country. That's exactly what everybody's doing. You go and bring in a quarterback and plug them in, and that you can.
I mean, Oregon rallied around Bo Nix. Washington rallied around Michael Penix. Like those are.
That's how we're going to do it going forward. Let's not get all hot and bothered about, well, he's got Juju Lewis waiting, in 2 years or whatever. Doesn't matter.
No, you put the most talented players on your roster however you can. If you can recruit them out of high school, you recruit them out of high school. If you have to recruit them out of the transfer portal, you recruit them out of the transfer portal. And that when Lincoln Riley says, I owe it to the guys, I owe it to the program, I owe it to the team to go out and always be on the look for the best player possible at every single position. That's it. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. So I don't know.
Freshman, right? I mean, he started back-to-back years at Oklahoma. He started freshman quarterbacks. He'll play a freshman, but there's no reason to play a freshman if there's a guy who's far more experienced and ready to win right now. Lincoln Riley can't afford to go 8-4 next year because he has a kid he wants to keep happy who will be ready 2 years from now. Doesn't make any sense.
And I think with Malachi, it's a different story. If he doesn't have that shoulder issue and he's healthy all through spring ball and he threw more than 3 passes this season, and he again didn't suit up against UCLA. Is he practicing at all? Like whatever that is, there could be a lot of time he's missed just for not being healthy all spring ball. That's a ton of time, and you're a different quarterback if you're on the field healthy for your entire true freshman season as an early enrollee, or what Malachi has been able to do so far.
And I'll say this: Miller Moss is not going anywhere until he gets his USC degree. Academics are very important to his family.
I think he's got like 3 of them so far.
Does he?
Well, yeah, a doctorate, I think.
Yeah, I think he's on faculty at this point.
Well, talk to me when he gets his postdoctorate then. But he's not going anywhere until he has those degrees or we're knowledgeable of it. Because I think what's really important is his mother taught at USC. I think education is a priority with him, at least in his case. So it makes for interesting projections here. Question 4 from HUD SD. When will we find out which existing defensive coaches will stay? And are there any existing offensive coaches that you think will be moving on? What do you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
On which side? Both sides or one?
Well,
side?
I think it'll right. The defensive coaches moving on, maybe right before the bowl game, certainly right after, because they're going to have to. Dan Lynn is going to stay in a recruiting only capacity up until the bowl game. As soon as you go 0-0s in the fourth quarter in the bowl game, you push him up into an on-field role, and then you have to shift at that point. Obviously, just the 1-for-1 change is probably Taylor Mays, who's up in at a safety coach right now, but. No, the entire offensive staff coming back. What happened last year at USC, where the entire coaching staff came back. That just doesn't happen. I mean, there's going to be changes. There are going to be changes on both sides. I'm again, without getting into specifics and we've heard this and that. That's the way college football works.
All right, question 5 from Barack from Australia. Hi, panel. I'm excited about D'Anton Lynn and what he might do with the USC roster and recruiting. Now, the question remains what Lynn will do with the coaching. A lot of recruits were vocal with keeping Dante. That means Dante Williams, cornerbacks coach. Nua might be a great coach. Ideally, I want the defensive coach to bring his staff in, but I heard he coached with the UCLA staff last year. What are your takes? What should he do? Which coaches should stay? I think we've gone over most of this here, but does anyone want to add anything to this particular question? And thank you again, Barack from Australia.
Well, you don't listen to players who want to keep the interim coach, and you don't listen to recruits who want to keep their position coach. That being said, all of these guys have coached just fine at other places. I mean, look back at what happens to coaches at USC under the defensive coordinators recently, and like that seems to be the link in all of this stuff. But these guys are not at the spot they are right now because they can't coach. It's just there's just a disconnect between the coordinator and what they're asking them to do and the mixing and matching and all of that stuff. But if they got rid of that entire defensive staff, I would not be shocked at all if they all went somewhere else and we're really good at wherever they landed next.
All right, question 6 from Big Daddy, originally in Inglewood. Love the show. Thanks for all your hard work. Well, thank you, Big Daddy, for watching us. We appreciate it. Would you be able to tell us how much of the current roster will be gently informed that their best chance of playing time might be at the other end of the portal and guided in that direction? I'm chomping at the bit to see what those recruits can do at the tight end position, among others. Comments?
Greg, say thank you, Big Daddy, one more time with some.
I was going to ask, I didn't hear the question. Can you repeat the whole thing?
Not the first time Greg said that. Listen, I don't think you're going to have conversations between Lincoln Riley and players to let them know they don't have a future. Players usually know if they're in a position where they're not likely to play, they know. And there's a lot of guys on this roster who know that already.
I think you just have to use Darwin Barlow as probably the best example. He literally would have been the senior, whatever, junior, redshirt junior, whatever his class eligibility is next year. He would have been the veteran leader. He's gone. He's checking out. He's gotten the message. And I'm surprised he stuck around this long.
I agree with that.
He looked pretty good every time he got in the game too, you know?
Crazy.
Why was that? Why did every time?
Yeah, you mean Darwin, why doesn't he get more carries, Barlow? I mean, that's yeah.
You wonder why they're having trouble attracting the elite running back through recruiting right now. And it's not, I don't think it's any fault of Kyle McDonald. Eric puts out the numbers every week. Marshawn Lloyd, his high carry number in the game was 17. I remember when USC was called Tailback U.
Well, there's a credibility issue there. You can't talk out of one side of your mouth, say we're going to run the ball and there's going to be so many carries, and then you don't do it. After a while, the players are pretty smart. Their coaches are pretty smart. Their advisors are pretty smart. And they go, if you go there, just don't listen to what they tell you. Look at the stats. Look at how it's coming out. And I think Barlow is, boy, if I'm recruiting against SC, I bring Barlow up immediately. And, I hate to say that, but, you have to admit what the perception is. All right, question 7 from Trojans 2021 in Chicago. What defensive assistants, if any, would you like Lynn to retain? Does anybody have a comment on that, or is this too sensitive?
Do you think anyone cares about the defensive assistants?
I'm glad this is the first time it's being brought up.
I mean, it's clearly that's been it for 2 years. For 2 years, that's been the question. Why isn't the defense working? Why isn't the defense working? It's absolutely understandable that there would be this much attention to it. And again, if at the end of the day they said clean slate, we got to go, new everywhere, I don't think it's an absolute knock on the individual coaches, but just kind of what it's been lately. You would not get a lot of pushback if you just said, let's start over and let's go fresh.
When you get a new car, you want that new car smell for a couple of weeks. And I think that's what you need when you're bringing in the new staff.
All right, we have a few more left. This is from RC Trojan from Rancho Cucamonga. I think he's letting off some steam here. I've noticed the sports internet fans, no matter how well the team does, there's always that one guy to piss in everyone's Cheerios. And
we've got 3.
I'm sorry?
I said we've got 3.
It's a big bowl of Cheerios.
It's got to be, supersized. And if the team does poorly, no need to elaborate on a particular team here. Holy shaving cream. It's a million times worse. Yes, it was a bad season. We all know. But do they really need to constantly spam every thread with multiple posts about how terrible everything is? It's bad enough for me. I just try to stay away from the boards for a bit or carefully filter my views. But how is it for you guys when your job or very involved hobby makes that impossible? Comment.
Love passion.
I'm not losing a second of sleep over people being upset and whining on the message board. Whatever. You're right. I mean, there were people during Pete Carroll's years that would go on and complain, but there weren't nearly as many. The number of complainers goes up dramatically as the number of losses goes up. So whatever. If you don't like reading it, you don't have to read it. But I encourage all of you to spend most of your day on our message board.
You know, it reminds me of Gary Paskowitz. I mean, we were sitting in lounge chairs watching practice during the highlight of the Pete Carroll years, and he starts talking.
The new people are not going to understand any of what you just said.
Well, Gary Paskowitz was the publisher and founder of WeAreSC.com. But anyway, we're sitting there.
No, the sitting and watching practice in lawn chairs.
Well, you know, it beats standing for 2.5 hours in that time period. But that being said, I remember we were sitting, we're talking, and Gary was saying, man, the people on the message board, there's just so negative. And he says, I don't understand how they could be negative during the Pete Carroll era. They've won like 30 games in a row. 32. How can you be negative with that? And I just kind of laughed. I said, well, you know what? Everybody has their own perspective, but it was quite unusual to win that many games in a row, and people were still complaining about it.
Well, no, actually, it was a specific complaint. We have to go to the Rose Bowl again. I mean, fans were complaining that USC had to settle for the Rose Bowl.
That's true.
I mean, it was such a nuanced complaint. It was, but yeah, Eric said it earlier. It's passion. And you have this really cool feature. It's called your finger. You just keep scrolling right on by.
All right, two more, guys. They'll be quick ones. Question 9 from Romy in Huntington Beach. Can Lynn do any on-field coaching without USC needing to make room for his presence? I think we know the answer to that, right? Eric,
he can observe, but he can't be an on-field assistant at this point.
Okay, you got the answer to that. Thank you, Romy in Huntington Beach. Question 10 from Daniel from Brazil. This will be our last question. What made USC fans laugh more? 1, stealing UCLA's defensive coordinator, or 2, Oregon losing on the Pac-12 in the Pac-12 conference championship. All right, which one is it, guys?
You forgot the part about they have to play Liberty in their bowl game.
That's a good one.
Obviously, taking D'Anton Lynn was more funny.
Look, it's neither. It's neither. I would trade with both. I would trade the program that has the defensive coordinator that wants to be stolen and the team playing in the Pac-12 conference championship. Both those sound better than where USC ended up this year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not yet to the point where I'm laughing at anything, but it was nice to see Oregon lose. That's always nice.
And we change it to not laughing to we're smirking. Will that be okay, Eric?
I think, yeah, the laugh becomes UCLA fans so confident that Chip Kelly's gone, and hey, let's make this young, good defensive coordinator our new head coach. And then you turn around and it's, I mean, the exact opposite of what kind of the expectation was, which that's a little funny.
We just bought off their bodyguard and made them, USC just said, hey, come over here. That's all they did. Gave him an extra $1 million a year, $500,000 to live. Come live on this side of the tracks.
Again, a reminder, if you have a question or comment for our panel, go to the WeAreSC message boards and click on the thread that pertains to Inside the Trojans Huddle, viewer or listener questions. All right, overtime, this is going to be really quick. We're going to take a look at the Pac-12 teams. All we have to hear from you is in overtime, do you agree or disagree with the opening odds for teams involved in the Pac-12? We'll go in this order. Chris, Mark, Eric, and myself. In the LA Live Bowl, agree or disagree? UCLA opened a 2.5-point favorite over Boise State. What do you think, Chris?
I think Boise State wins. Guys at Boise are always more pumped up to play a UCLA than UCLA is to play them.
Mark?
Yeah, Boise big.
Eric?
Yeah, I don't think we've heard about UCLA opt-outs yet. I'd imagine though there will be a few.
Yeah, agree. In the Independence Bowl, agree or disagree, Cal opened a 1.5-point favorite over Texas Tech. Chris?
I actually like Cal on that one. I think Cal's going to be pretty excited to be in a bowl game. I think the Bears win it.
Mark?
Couldn't care.
Greg? I think Cal's going to win it. I think it means more to them. In Las Vegas Bowl, agree or disagree, Utah opened a 9.5-point favorite over Northwestern. Do those odds sound about right, Chris?
I mean, isn't Northwestern horrible? It should be a bigger spread than that. Utah win that game easy.
Mark?
Northwestern made a bowl game. I mean, I remember how they started the season with, the big cloud that was hanging over their program. I remember USC playing Northwestern in the Rose Bowl. Northwestern might be everybody's favorite underdog right now. So I'm rooting. I think Northwestern pulls this one out.
Eric?
Didn't Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson are in the transfer portal right now? I don't know if Utah
Right.
has a quarterback for this game.
Wow.
So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to play with 11 guys on offense.
Would you bring a pig farmer to USC to play quarterback?
Not a lot of pig farms in downtown LA.
Yeah.
I think the point spread is about right. I think Northwestern thinks they played in the Big Ten, and they've seen all the physical. There's physical, and then there's Utah. Okay, and the relentlessness of their physicality. All right, in the Alamo Bowl, agree or disagree, Arizona opened a 1-point favorite over Oklahoma. Ouch. Chris?
Please let this happen. Arizona beating OU in that bowl game. It may be the only bowl game I care about all year. I want the Sooner fans to suffer, and I think Arizona's a better team. Please let that happen.
Mark?
It's only 1 point now. Dylan Gabriel, did he jump into the transfer portal? If he did, that line is going to change big time. Arizona's going to win that game.
Eric?
Yeah, I think Arizona.
And I'll go with
Oklahoma's got a few guys in the portal or going in.
I will go with Arizona. In the Sun Bowl, agree or disagree, Notre Dame opened a 10.5-point favorite over Oregon State. Chris?
I don't think Notre Dame, well, before Oregon State lost their coach, I don't think Notre Dame was 10.5 points better than Oregon State, but losing your coach is going to be a problem. But here's what I think. I think this is going to be a replay of my favorite non-USC bowl game of all time, when Oregon State just beat Notre Dame by, it felt like 1,000 points, and got a taunting penalty every third play, but it didn't matter because on 1st and 25, they threw a 28-yard pass. I loved that Fiesta Bowl game so much that I'm really hoping we can get a repeat.
2001 Fiesta Bowl, 41-9.
So great.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that kind of final, but I think Oregon State covers.
Eric?
The MVP in that game, by the way, quarterback Jonathan Smith. It's kind of fun.
Wow.
Oregon State has both their quarterbacks in the portal right now too, right? Like the bowl game stuff is just wild with all of this. So we may see 40 teams running Wildcat only offenses in the bowl game.
I think Notre Dame will take it to Oregon State. I even wonder why they even sell programs at the games anymore for some of the lower tier games. You don't even know who's going to be on the roster. In the Fiesta Bowl, agree or disagree, Oregon opened a 15.5-point favorite over Liberty. Chris?
I mean, I don't think Liberty's anything. I'm sure Oregon will win that game easily, but could be fun if they don't show up.
Mark?
Yeah, give me Liberty in the points.
Eric?
That was my first thought, but I think Oregon's going to go play. I think they're going to beat them.
Oregon will crush Liberty because it means something to Bo Nix, and the rest of the team will feed off of it. In the Sugar Bowl college football playoff national semifinal, agree or disagree, Texas opened up a 4.5-point favorite over Washington. Chris?
I think Texas is better in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I think Washington will make it a game. I think the Longhorns win.
Mark?
At this point, I don't think you want to really bet against Washington. That good teams win close games, and they find ways to win games that are close. However by whatever means necessary, they figure it out. I do love the, you know, the storyline though. You got Team Sark, man, that guy from Washington to Texas, both of these programs are now in the playoffs playing each other. This might be Washington's, they just might be that charm team this year.
Eric?
I'm with both of you guys. I think Texas is the better team, and I wouldn't bet against Washington. In the upside down world, Lincoln Riley is talking about how Washington is 3 plays away from 3 losses this year. And guess what? They make those plays. I mean, if you're a team in a program that can make those plays, that's a skill. I mean, that is really kind of in your DNA. If you can do that, Washington's been that this year.
I like the points on this one. I think that Texas seems to have it all together, and Washington hangs in there, but I like that defensive line of Texas and the ability to maybe get through to Penix. All right, Cardinal and Gold special in the Holiday Bowl. Agree or disagree? Louisville opened a 6.5-point favorite over USC. Chris?
It's going to be a tough one for USC to win, unless Louisville just doesn't care and they have a bunch of guys opt out. But USC with a struggling offensive line and without Caleb Williams and with that defense, it's going to be a tough one to win.
Mark?
Yeah, I don't know who's playing for USC. So right now, I don't know who's playing for USC.
Eric?
Same kind of stuff. Yeah, I think Louisville. I think SC shows up, but I think there's probably a lot of inexperience on the field in this one. And again, we don't cover Louisville. They might have 6 guys that are playing in this game. They might have a ton of guys opting out too. But just kind of looking at it on paper, it's not a great matchup for USC.
And I agree. And let's not forget that Louisville has established a little bit of a recruiting presence in Southern California. So they'll be looking to score some brownie points, if you will, when they play SC. I think that Louisville probably will make it a very difficult night for USC in a number of ways. So again, if you've enjoyed Inside the Trojans Huddle, please click on the like and red subscriber buttons. We greatly appreciate your support, and be sure to check out WeAreSC.com, become a premium member. That'll do it for Tuesday's edition of Inside the Trojans Huddle. A reminder to watch 4 Downs on Fridays for the latest USC and college football news presented by Prize Picks. So until next Tuesday, big thank you to our panelists. They're all great. Mark Culkin, Eric McKinney, Chris Arledge, and a special thank you to you, the listener, for all of you watching or listening to Inside the Trojans Huddle. Have a great week, great weekend. So until next Tuesday, this is your moderator, Greg Katz, reminding you all to beat the Cardinals. Fight on, everybody.